Hi everybody, I'm Trisha Peach, host of the Peach Buzz, and actually it's a very special episode this week. We are coming to you live from Orlando, Florida. Yes, you may commence feeling sorry for us now. We are at CPC 2019. 2019, and we've been having a lot of fun. We were at Disney Springs last night. It was a blast, and I want to introduce you guys to my sister. This is Pastor Erica Goffin. She is over a lot of family life at her church. She's the youth pastor, but she does a lot with preteen ministry, worship ministry. You know how it is. Sometimes in church, you're doing what needs to be done. And yes, we are sisters. We've been told that we look alike. We don't always see it, but other people do. So we're rooming together at CPC, and I thought for this week a great episode would be talking about when children's pastors are working with the kids, the goal really needs to be to have them be an active member of the church. But there's a massive drop-off, unfortunately, when the handoff is supposed to happen from children's to youth. So my degree's in children's ministry. She's a youth pastor, works in youth ministry, has for years. Actually, how many years have you been in youth ministry?
Well, I started very young. I started when I was 18. Mm-hmm. So I am 38 now, and so that means I've been doing it for a few years.
Wow. See, that's a lot of ministry. So what I wanted to ask her today, and for all of you to get to hear, when kids are coming up from children's ministry into youth ministry, what do you wish was different? Because they say that's the number one time for kids to stop going to church, and by the way, they usually don't come back unless they're having children of their own someday. So let's say you're the children's pastor. What is your focus? What are you trying to be? What's the goal? Part of that should be a smooth handoff to youth ministry and have them continue going to church. But I wanted to ask her thoughts on this. I think part of it is that we make adult service and sometimes youth group a punishment. The main service, I hear this all the time. I'm not picking on anybody. I've done this myself. But I'll say, if you don't stop messing around right now, I will send you to the main service. I'll do it. God have mercy on your soul. And then we wonder why they don't want to go to church when they get why would they want to go? That's a punishment. So I never make that a punishment. I always say we're all part of one church. Sometimes we go to what we call big church. It's where we're all together, or we split out. But it's all one church. It's not a bunch of church. It's one church. And I think the other perception is that kids' church is fun and games, and then youth group is somehow boring, but it's not.
Well, usually the kids like youth group, and they want to be in there. They want to be. The teens are intimidating. They're exciting, and they do all the cool stuff. But you have the problems of complicated schedules. When you're coming into youth ministry, you've got kids that are so insanely busy with the load that they have at school, then tons of homework, sports. Some of them are doing 4 or 5 sports and dance and pre-college classes, and you name it. By the time they get into middle school, their schedules just start adding and adding. They got t-ball, they got volleyball, they got basketball, they got football. So every season they're going into something else, and they want to show up for the fun events like your lock-ins. But regular church attendance is just gone. They've even got Sunday morning things for teenagers that they are required to be at, or they can't be a part of the team. And so one of the things that I think that a children's pastor could do is to start working with parents to know this is coming and to continue to make God a priority.
Okay.
I don't think these kids can be successful because there's so many demands. And a lot of parents just go, you choose. You choose whether you want to be in church or you want to be in t-ball. That's not okay, because a kid is never going to choose, would you rather eat a chocolate bar or brush your teeth? They're never going to choose the right thing. And God has to be taught. Priorities have to be taught. A work ethic has to be taught. It's not something they're just going to get and you go, well, if you crash and burn, then you'll learn. Not spiritually. No. That's a very scary thing to say when you're talking about somebody's soul. Yes. And honoring the Sabbath day and keeping it holy is one of the 10 Commandments.
Yeah.
So we don't usually celebrate the Jewish Sabbath. We don't usually celebrate
Saturday.
Some people do. But the thought there is the principle has to be taught in talking to your kids about when are you going to honor God?
Well, I love what you said, prioritizing God. And I've heard parents say that, well, I'm going to let them choose, especially when they turn 13. I don't know about you. I have a 15-year-old and a 13-year-old, and never once do I say, well, you just eat whatever you want because you can choose what to eat. They choose horribly. So I force them to eat some good food.
Absolutely. True. This is more of a parent.
Yes.
I realize you said children's pastors and leaders. And the only thing that a leader in a church can do is try to include the whole family in your teaching. If you cannot teach mom and dad, a lot of times you're going to lose the kids.
Yes.
And you can talk to your senior pastors about how to encourage the family to teach priorities to your children, because it's got to trickle down.
Yes.
It's got to come from the top and move down. Mom and dad teach those things from the time they start to walk.
Yes.
And so by the time they get to their teenage years, this is when teens hit rebellion. This is when they start making their own decisions. And I'm an adult now. I'm 12, And I want to, you've seen the dangers when they decide how much they're going to date and who they're going to date. You've already seen those kind of fallouts, or if whether or not they're going to do drugs, or whether or not they're going to drink alcohol. You've seen, and you'd go, what a lousy parent. Mm-hmm. You've given your child a gun and you've loaded it and you said, go play. It's not a good idea. But we often do this with church where we say, it's okay, make your own decision. You go out there and you just go out there, and whether you want to go do this or you want to do basketball, you choose. What you got to do is say, let's learn to prioritize our time. And I think that maybe there could be something involved in children's ministry where we talk to parents about helping kids to go, where are your priorities at? And then a lot of encouragement and time taken aside with the families when they're going to transfer into youth ministry.
Yeah.
Maybe an introduction to the youth pastor.
Oh,
or
I like
meeting.
that. I like
we
that.
say, hey, you're going to be moving on to another ministry. You're moving out of Awana. You're moving out of Missionettes and Rangers, or whatever program your kids are doing.
Make it a good thing.
And
Make
say, you're graduating
positive.
now, and you're going to be part of this group, and this is what we're hoping you'll get out of it.
Not a negative, like you're so old now, we're kicking you out. It's, look what you are graduating into. This is so exciting. And again, on the part of prioritizing God, we would never tell our kids to go to school on the days that they feel like it.
No.
They would never.
My kids would never attend church.
They'd never go to
never attend
school or
school.
Yeah.
And honestly, my kids would never attend church if they felt like it. They would always feel like playing video games and sitting around on their day off.
Absolutely. And I take my kids for their scheduled doctor's appointments, whether they like it or not.
And
I take them for
dentist.
teeth cleaning, whether they like it or not. Because as a parent, you have to they're not capable of making all those decisions right now. That's why they have a parent. You're supposed to help them make the right decisions. So we have to, as children's pastors and leaders, we have to make that transition better because we're losing way too many of them. Can you tell them what you guys did with VBS that I thought was so great at your church? Your VBS benefited both children's and youth.
We use our VBS as an outreach in a couple of different ways. Mm-hmm. We started doing VBS because we saw a benefit in it in our children's ministry, and our children's ministry pours into our youth ministry.
Yes.
And so we wanted to build up the children's ministry, and so I got involved because I am working with youth, but I went, okay, if there's no children, there are no youth.
Do you hear that? The youth pastor.
If there's no children, there are no youth. And if you continually outreach outside the church, which is a good thing, it's very, very difficult to keep them if you do not have the parents on board with a regular attendance. Because most of them cannot drive.
Yep.
Most of them are not, the ones that do control their own schedules are not going to continue to choose to keep church regular. Some of them will, but if you really want to build up a base and grow your youth ministry, you have to start with the children's ministry and get those parents who are regularly attending on Wednesdays to regularly attend youth ministry on the same nights, or whatever night you do youth ministry, and that's a big transition and change if you do it on a different night. So we started kicking off VBS right before school started, about a month before we would do it. And we did a large parade, and we advertised everywhere. Well, we got the teens involved in the parade, and they would do the dancing and the puppets and all the different things in the parade. And then we used the teens for our worship team during VBS. So they got to be a part of service,
of
awesome. Ministry, of outreach, and we'd include them in the prayer groups and the teens. But we would also include the 5th and 6th graders into VBS, the older kids.
That's
and
great.
A lot of people say they're too old to be there, they're already going into the youth group. And in our church, we include 6th grade into the middle school because our middle school includes 6th grade.
And our church does too.
But by fishing with VBS for 6th grade, the 6th graders that came to VBS came back with their younger siblings and joined youth group while their siblings were coming in for the Awana programs.
See, the youth pastor getting on board, having a passion for VBS.
We worked together.
And they worked together. The children's and the youth department both gained numbers and gained in quality. I think it would be less scary too if the kids had been there and saw the 5th and 6th graders leading worship and then find out, oh, now I know some people that will be there at youth group and things that they'll be doing at youth group. There's no reason why the youth pastor can't help with VBS and be a visible presence.
Oh, and I think they should. And they should get a list. One of the things I get from my Wednesday night leaders that are for kids, they give me a list of every 6th grader that's graduating out.
Oh, wow.
And so I have a list
awesome.
So I can make a phone call and say, hey, I heard you're coming into my class this year. We're really excited to have you be a part of youth group. It's going to be the best year of your life. Sweet. And my leaders at the children's ministries go to those kids and say, hey, I heard next year you're going to come in with us. And, so
that's
excited.
Awesome.
We try to really encourage them to stay. And we do the same thing for our college kids. Unfortunately, as they're growing into colleges, whatever, we try to hook them up with college ministries and introduce them. Or if there's not going to be a college ministry on campus, we try to find a list of churches for them.
Because that's the second highest drop-off is from youth group into college.
Huge. They get there and they don't know where to go, and they're nervous and they're scared. But I'll give them a few options. Sometimes even call the pastor there and say, I've got a young lady coming into your area. Would you invite her to your young adult ministry? And give them a paper with phone numbers, whatever. And then I will recontact those teenagers later on and say, did you try a new church there? Have you found somebody you really enjoy? And not all of my teenagers have. But I have found, I've got one in Washington, D.C. right now. She's a soldier. And she has plugged into a church there, and we talk back and forth all the time about
that's
her
a
new
power
church.
Of children's ministry, youth ministry, student ministries, college ministries working together, because it's not about building one group. It's about having
building the individual.
Yes, having that person stay committed to Christ for life and be an active part of their church. So when I'm sending them up to youth group, I want them to love serving, to have made a habit of serving. So they show up in youth group and go, where can I serve? What can I do? Can I run your sound? Can I help with worship? What can I do? And to make a habit of being in church. Prioritizing God. I like how you put that. Prioritizing God, so that when they move up, they're in a habit of being there every Wednesday and they want to serve. So I love when youth and children's can work together, especially on outreaches, VBS.
We have to. And we all have to get behind the senior pastor's vision together.
Yeah.
So when the senior telling the adults that we're going to be working on loving our neighbor, then the children and the youth have got to start doing the same things and following the senior pastor's
Absolutely.
vision. Because the body of Christ has got to be united right now.
I agree.
You've got to be united, and that means that children and youth can't be competing with each other.
No.
We have got to be
It's self-defeating.
Handing these young people up the ladder and continuing to keep them in and educating them in the Word of God so that they are equipped to deal with a very dark world right now.
Absolutely.
A lot of temptation, a lot of confusion, the media and the things that are coming out, the twisted teachings. These kids are so confused. They don't know what is right, what is wrong. It's whatever you feel. It's like Jesus said, I'll give you that sign that in the last days, everyone will do what is right in his own mind. And that is what teenagers are at. And so when we get them, I'm sure you see it already in children's ministry when they're young with that confusion. We teach them right and wrong, and we give them the Word of God, and we got to keep them in as we go. We've got to keep them in, and then we've got to help them find a church of their own someday as they're learning, so they don't get pulled out.
So what I get
with
from
that weird stuff.
Correct me if I'm breaking it down wrong, but it sounds like you're saying we need to start very early on in kids ministry training the parents.
Yes.
How to make God a priority and serve in the church, commit to church. Secondly, we need to stop making youth group and the adult service a punishment, or we need to make it a promotion and be excited about it. 3, we need to stop the competition between youth and children's ministry and work together on outreaches.
Well, maybe even occasionally do some services together.
Absolutely.
Do some breaking down of the boundaries, breaking down of the walls.
Family ministries.
We're going to have family worship. We're all going to come together. Or we're going to play a game all together. Or get the teens involved in kids ministry. Have them do puppets or something like that. I think that there's so much we can do to bring it together.
I agree.
And to make it a family, because we should be a family. The whole group should be a family.
A family of families. That's what it is about. And the number one thing I see is it's not about a competition between the different areas. It's about the individual and making sure they stay connected to God and connected to their church family.
And if they have to go to a new church family to help them get plugged in.
Yes. Oh, yes. Well, I hope you guys enjoy this. I enjoy every second I get with my sister. We're having so much fun on this trip. It's all too brief, but we will keep you posted, and I hope you took a lot of notes. Thank you for your service to Jesus and his kids, those of you that are working with preteens and youth and children. Wherever you are, thank you for what you do for Jesus and his kids. You are not alone. And keep working together as a group to reach families for Jesus. Thank you very much, and I will see you next week.
Thanks for watching.